So, story time for me as I sit and wait for my falafel kebab to cool. This is a very embarrassing situation for myself when I was first. I've never had a detention in my life, ever. Not at school, I never got in trouble. I was always a goody two-shoes type of person, teacher's pet. Always stuck to the rules because my family were very strict on that in my family type thing. So I've never had a detention. And when I first went under the Mental Health Act and I was carted off to St. Vincent's Hospital in COVID type thing because I, was off medications at the time and I was struggling with my tablet taking, rearranging the furniture type thing. I sat there mouthing off to myself and talking about grandiose things about the king, the queen, the government, as it happens when you're psychotically unstable type thing. And they were forcing me to take my lithium and I'd refuse. I was sitting there for like hours on end, them trying to force me to take my medications and I refused. I wasn't violent or anything, I just sat in the purple chair as they, encouraged me and enticed me to put the tablet in my mouth and giving me the detention detainment paperwork. I went, how dare you give this to me, you piece of shit fucking person. I feel for nurses in mental health, I truly do, but you're kind of asking for it when you want to wheel me in a wheelchair to the intensive care unit section of the psychiatric hospital, and there I was being wheeled and they could barely push it. I said to them, I will walk behind you, you won't be able to push me in this chair. And they had like 3 people struggling with the size that I am, trying to push me in this wheelchair that made no fucking sense. So here we all are, everyone having to learn to get a fucking long. Thank you, New South Wales hospital team members. But when I came out of hospital, it was very much a vendetta against the government. And at the time I was doing a fashion design course that was, I was very elevated in my personality, and I had dreams of opening up my own fashion label, plus size clothing label, hourglass type thing. And I had to come to the realization that I'm too diagnostically unwell to achieve something that grand and that prestigious type thing. And I went back to the fashion course and I kind of said to myself, if I ever got to the diploma, I would make a straight jacket in period form and send it to Albanese. Which I pretty much think is a crime in this country. I don't really know. All I know is I've got all this calico fabric, that they make the twirls with, the sample pieces with, and I had all this idea to colour it in black pigments, colour shades, and send it to the ABC across the road. I had all these grand gestures of getting even with the Mental Health Act, because it made no fucking sense that you would put someone who's got a diagnostic disease profile, mentally unstable, I understand, but, I was very much insulted by my situation, and I still have said to myself, if I ever went back to the fashion design course, I would make a straight jacket in period form and send it to, the ABC, to Albanese type thing, because I just had enough of the Mental Health Act, that makes no sense, because it's the only diagnostic disease profile where you're expected to, have a set of rules and guidelines around your disease profile type thing. It's not like cancer or heart disease or diabetes or anything like that. It's got its own set of rules. I understand why it's there and it needs to stay where it is because of what happened in Bondi type thing. But it very much needs to improve itself, very much so, to be less insulting to the patient, And that's about it, really. So I've got my falafel kebab, my phytochemical, chemistry is coming back into its normalcy more than ever before. I used to do art and visual art and photography a lot and stuff like that. So I was very much a postmodern artist type of person in the way that I did the fashion design course. I was very much into digital and social media, posts at the time, and it fed into my illness a little bit and my personality as a photographer of political photography and all that type of stuff that I was very much fascinated and interested in the history of World War II and black and white photography and all that type of thing. So yeah, I've turned a leaf and I've come to my realization that it's not a good idea to do that to someone, to send someone a piece of fashion that is a detainment master, detainment ensemble type thing. And yeah, so I've got to turn a new leaf and put it behind me that I'm no longer involved in politics and the injustices of people's situations type thing. I look after my own personal mental health, and I don't think using, because at the time I kind of was on just the pension, and I just said to myself, I'll use the tax payable resources of a free program at TAFE to make the straitjacket type thing and send it off and use government tax paying resources to get even with Albanese. Anyways, you learn from your mistakes. It's a prototype, everyone. Don't do it in person. And yeah, that's about it, really. That's my story. That's the story of how I almost got arrested. Not that I ever got in trouble with police or anything like that. I'm very much a civilian type thing. But when you've had your human rights stripped away from you, you don't fucking care what happens to you. And that's why all around the world people have just had fucking enough. Anyways, I've had enough of the Mental Health Act. It needs to stay where it is, I understand, but it's very much an insulting set of rules that makes no sense to diagnostic patients when no other condition in this country has a set of rules. There's no, Diabetes Act, there's no Heart Disease Act, there's no Cancer Act. They don't exist for other disease profiles except for mental health. And I didn't have a mental illness. I have a brain disorder. I don't have a lived experience trauma that was given to me by my detainment paperwork type thing. So, yeah, that's about it, really. That's my story.